am deeply attached to my sister, to be with her every single day. The moment I heard she was to be betrothed to the eldest son of the Shen family, I immediately tried every means to pester the second son of the Shen family. I even went as far as using my own reputation to force his hand, hoping he would marry me. After 3 months of relentless pestering, I finally managed to persuade him. But as I waited joyfully for the 2 Shen brothers to arrive and propose on that day, I stared at the unfamiliar name on the proposal card and froze. I had made a mistake. My sister was betrothed to the Sheng family, not the Shen family. My eldest sister is only 6 years older than me, but she raised me with her own hands. Mother's body was extremely weak after giving birth, and less than half a year after I was born, she caught a cold in the autumn and passed away. Father had just been promoted to vice minister of the Ministry of Rights and was often so busy that he was gone all day. I was only 6 months old, and missing my parents, I would cry day and night. I could only be pacified when my sister was by my side. Originally, I lived alone in a courtyard, cared for and fed by a wet nurse and older maids. Later, my sister couldn't bear to see this, so she had me brought to her side to care for me herself. My sister was exceptionally intelligent. She knew how to manage accounts at 8 years old. By the age of 10, she was already managing the entire household in perfect order. During the emperor's birthday celebration when she was 12, her congratulatory poem astounded everyone, and even the emperor spoke highly of her. From then on, her title as the most talented lady echoed throughout the capital. The year she came of age, the matchmakers practically beat down the gates of the Song family home, and many of them were from prominent and noble families. The visiting matchmakers were beaming with joy, speaking with absolute eloquence. In the bedchamber, I clung tightly to my sister's arm, weeping hysterically. "If you get married, take me with you. I don't want to be separated from you. I will be your little maid." My sister didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She wiped my tear-stained face.
"You're talking nonsense again. If there were no elders left at home, it would indeed be reasonable for a bride to bring her younger sister along to her husband's home.
But father is still alive, and he is a high-ranking official. If I followed my eldest sister there, it would make us the laughingstock of the entire city, and the court officials would impeach father to death. Perhaps because my resistance was so strong, sister really didn't agree to any proposal after that. It wasn't until I came of age that I heard father discussing her marriage with sister again. He said the eldest young master of the Shen family had proposed with utmost sincerity and asked for sister's thoughts. For someone who had always avoided or refused the topic, sister for once did not object.
"I will leave everything to father's arrangement."
This attitude meant she agreed. Father let out a long sigh of relief and smiled with gratification, but my heart sank completely, turned around, and left. The Shen family, I had to find out which Shen family they were. I sent people to investigate. The only Shen family in the capital worthy of my sister, and of a similar age, was the Shen family of Chaosi, and prominent clans. A century-old clan. They had produced a duke, and in the imperial harem right now, there was a noble consort Shen and a consort Shen the younger, both of whom were highly favored. Judging by social status, the Shen family was indeed an excellent match. This eldest young master sister was to marry, was 23, and not yet wed. He was said to be highly talented, but had no interest in officialdom. He had a younger brother from the same mother, named Shen Yougui. Having just come of age, he already held a high position in the court of judicial review at a young age. Most importantly, he wasn't married either. Holding the information I had sent people to gather about Shen Yougui, a plan slowly formed in my mind. The Shen family had an upright household character, and Shen Yougui, as a son of the first wife, was taught to act as a gentleman from a young age. He is said to be refined, elegant, with a mild temperament. I suppose he would make a very suitable husband. If I could get him to marry me, wouldn't I be able to live in the same estate as my sister? When the time comes, my sister will manage the household, while I'll be responsible for clinging to her, eating and living together. It won't be any different from being in our own home. Only, I don't have much experience dealing with men, nor do I know how to make someone fall for me, so I had no choice but to seek advice. A recently married cook, upon hearing that she fell in love with her husband at first sight, used a little ingenuity to successfully win him over. Seeing me ask so humbly for guidance, the cook generously shared her secret.
"My lady, you have certainly come to the right person. If you want to win a man over, the first step is to capture his stomach. Back when I was pursuing my husband, I kept finding different ways to send him delicious food. Within a few days, he took the initiative to ask me out.
It turned out that it didn't seem so difficult. I immediately went by the preferences I had gathered and bought a portion of every single food on the street that Lord Shen likes to eat. I had them delivered to the court of judicial review, making sure to instruct that they were specifically for him. Following her example, only 5 days later, I actually received a reply from Shen Yougui. He invited me to meet at a tea house. I put on my most fashionable emerald green dress and hurried to the appointment. From across the street, I spotted on the second floor of the tea house the elegant gentleman sitting by the window. Indeed, he had an outstanding aura, extraordinary and refined. No wonder so many daughters of wealthy families in the city secretly harbor crushes on him. Shen Yougui politely clasped his hands to greet me.
"Greetings, Miss Song."
Since it was our first meeting, I hoped to leave a good impression, so I returned the greeting in a proper manner. "Lord Shen, Once we were both seated, Shen Yougui continued to speak.
These past few days while on duty, I noticed a sudden mysterious abundance of pastries at the Court of Judicial Review. After asking around, I learned they were sent by you, my lady.
They are indeed from me. The cook had advised me that since I spent the money, I must let the man know exactly who bought them. So, I admitted it quite frankly. What did you think of the taste, young Master Shen? Were they delicious? Shen Yougui nodded slightly.
The flavor was passable.
I really didn't expect this Lord Shen to be so easy to win over. Perhaps this matter is highly promising. I secretly rejoiced in my heart. Since that is the case, I will send them to you every day from now on.
I wouldn't dare trouble you, my lady. In truth, the reason I came to this meeting today was to ask what you hope to achieve.
After all, I was about to ask someone to marry me. I felt somewhat embarrassed in my heart. I do indeed have a matter, for which I wish to ask Lord Shen's assistance.
Please feel free to speak plainly, my lady. As long as it is within my power, I will certainly do my utmost.
Don't go back on those words. I truly hadn't expected Shen Yougui to be so easy to talk to. I directly stated my purpose. Could Lord Shen marry me? Shen Yougui seemed suddenly startled. The tea he had just sipped almost sprayed out. He desperately forced himself to swallow it, but it went down the wrong pipe instead. He raised his long sleeve to cover his face, coughing awkwardly for quite a while, before barely regaining his composure. Yet on that fair face, one could clearly see a flushed redness brought on by the coughing fit. I genuinely had not expected that Shen Yougui, who usually appeared so calm and unbothered, as if his expression wouldn't change even if the sky fell, would lose his composure so easily. Are you all right, young Master Shen?
I am fine.
Shen Yougui steadied his breath. A faint watery glint shone in the eyes he turned toward me.
However, please forgive me, for I cannot comply.
I returned home in low spirits. I only had 2 bites of my favorite braised pork shank, so the cook actually thought she had done a poor job, and came specifically to ask about it. Dejectedly, I said, Heiress, the method you taught me didn't work. Omitting our names, I pretended it was a friend's experience, and explained everything in great detail. Hearing this, the cook burst into laughter.
My dear lady, your friend is far too impatient. How can marriage be decided over just a few meals? If your friend's beloved had absolutely no feelings for her, he wouldn't even agree to meet her at all.
Then tell me, what should my friend do?
Naturally, they need to spend more time together. Back then, I invited my husband to look at the festive lanterns, pretended to sprain my ankle, and he carried me on his back the entire way. From then on, he became much warmer toward me. It happens to be the Lantern Festival in 2 days. You should definitely have your friend give it a try.
It sounded highly promising. Shen Yougui is a refined gentleman. Seeing me injured, he certainly wouldn't stand by and do nothing. Time for immediate action. I quickly sent an invitation to Shen Yougui, asking him to stroll by the lake on the night of the festival. And following the cook's advice, I made sure I smelled wonderfully fragrant, to ensure that when Shen Yougui carried me, the scent would stir his heart. Everything was ready. All that was missing was Shen Yougui. Fortunately, Master Shen has always been reliable and meticulous. Even if he refused to marry me, he would definitely not break our appointment. However, his attitude toward me was rather distant.
Second lady, if my words the other day left anything unclear, I am willing to explain them to you again.
Oh, I know. But I have plenty of ways, and I don't believe he won't change his mind. I waved my hand. Even if we are just friends, we can still have a great time, right? Don't you agree, Lord Shen? Shen Yougui was taken aback for a moment. He indeed did not refute me, so I dragged him around to wander here and there. We talked about this and that. When we reached a less crowded area, taking advantage of the moment he turned around, I pretended to fall to the ground. In a flurry, Shen Yougui turned back around and reached out his hand to help me up.
What is the matter, second young mistress?
I seem to have sprained my ankle.
Allow me to take a look.
As soon as Shen Yougui finished speaking, he was about to lift the hem of my skirt to examine it. No, that would be improper.
It was my offense. I will go and find a doctor for you right away.
That won't do either. Now, meeting his slightly bewildered gaze, I had no choice but to brazenly make up an excuse. I am afraid of being left here all alone. Shen Yougui looked around. The surroundings were indeed quiet and devoid of people. He hesitated for a long while, then asked,
Then what do you propose we do, second young mistress?
Carry me back to the carriage. I looked up at him. Shen Yougui must be far more conservative than the cook's husband. Seeing this, I changed my request from carrying me on his back to holding me in his arms, which would be even more intimate.
Isn't this even more improper than examining your injury?
Shen Yougui asked in return, but I would never let my own words corner me. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I put on a cheeky smile and reached out my arms. Thank you for your trouble, Lord Shen. Shen Yougui went quiet for a moment. To my surprise, he actually bent down and scooped me up in a princess carry. Who would have thought that despite his refined and scholarly appearance, his arms were actually quite powerful. Lifting me up was absolutely effortless for him, as easy as carrying a lightweight willow branch. I threw my reservations to the wind as well, and openly wrapped my arms around his neck. Shen Yougui's body tensed up imperceptibly. Lord Shen, I leaned a bit closer to him. Do you smell any fragrance? Shen Yougui's breathing grew slightly heavier. He gently turned his face away.
Not at all.
I lowered my eyes in slight disappointment. Oh, well, perhaps fearing they might be spotted. Shen Yougui carried me, specifically choosing the most secluded paths. Because of this, we took a long detour. I noticed that a hint of crimson had somehow flushed his earlobes. I couldn't help but ask, Lord Shen, are you tired?
Why do you ask, second lady?
Your ears are completely red, Lord Shen. Shen Yougui, who was holding me, suddenly stumbled, fearing I would be dropped to the ground. I hurriedly wrapped my arms tightly around his neck in a panic, thinking to myself that Shen Yougui truly was exhausted. But then again, it made sense. He had carried me over such a long distance. He must be absolutely exhausted. Just as I was trying to think of an excuse to get down and walk on my own, Shen Yougui spoke up.
It is no trouble. There is no need for you to worry, second lady.
I gave a soft "oh" and didn't expose his lie, secretly thinking he was quite stubborn. Fortunately, the carriage was almost there. Shen Yougui placed me into the carriage, still insisting on finding a physician for me, and said, forget it. There are physicians at my manor. I can have it treated once I return home. Shen Yougui seemed to understand, and did not insist further.
As the saying goes, it takes 100 days to recover from a bone or tendon injury. Please rest and recuperate well.
I had been too hasty, in my zeal to get him to carry and hold me. I had forgotten that a sprain actually required time to heal. To avoid giving myself away, I had no choice but to pretend to be bedridden at home. During this period, I continued to send tea and pastries to Shen Yougui as before. The cook had said that when a man says he doesn't want something, he actually does. Indeed, none of the items I sent him were ever returned. I sent another letter to Shen Yougui. I pretended that the pain was unbearable, and the very next day, I received the medicine he sent over. I had our physician examine it, and it turned out to be an excellent remedy for sprains. Clutching the medicine, I smiled in secret delight, planning to seize this momentum and keep pressing forward. Within 2 days, I went to find Shen Yougui again, using the excuse that the medicine he gave me worked wonders, and that I had recovered with miraculous speed. Shen Yougui did not suspect anything, but when he walked by my side, he was far more vigilant than before, as if he was terrified that I might fall again. Neither his background nor mine made it easy to hide our actions, and with us spending time together every day, word quickly reached my family's manor. My eldest sister actually called me before her to question me.
You have been getting quite close to the second young master of the Shen family lately.
Last year, my sister had asked me about this. She would have to get married sooner or later. So what was I to do? I was much more mature now, and I was determined not to cling to her and weep as I used to. After some thought, I said that whichever household she married into, I would marry into as well. I thought my sister would be happy, but to my surprise, she flew into a great rage and actually gave me a severe scolding.
You are never allowed to have such thoughts again.
Shen Yougui is the younger brother of the eldest young master Shen. Fearing that my sister would see through my scheme, I lowered my head, feeling quite guilty. My sister changed her line of questioning.
A-Liang, could it be that you have taken a fancy to the second young master Shen?
Taken a fancy, my eyes lit up. Yes, indeed. Ever since childhood, my sister had taught me that whatever her younger sister set her heart on, she must have it. As long as I admitted that I fancied Shen Yougui, and the two Shen brothers came to propose marriage together in the future, my sister would not be angry with me anymore. Sister, I have taken a fancy to him, and I am determined to marry him. That way, I can still be together with you. Since childhood, the only person I had ever declared affection for was my sister. This was the very first time I had ever told my sister to her face that I fancied someone else. She was stunned for a moment, and then she smiled.
My little sister has grown up. I was still worried about getting married alone and leaving you all by yourself, A-Liang.
It seemed my elder sister did not object to my marrying Shen Yougui and moving into the Shen estate with her. Joyfully, I leaned down and rested against her legs. I love you the most, sister. I will definitely do my best to stay by your side for a very, very long time. Even though I had spoken so confidently in front of my sister, Shen Yougui was indeed very difficult to deal with. I recalled overhearing father and sister talking the other day, saying that the Shen family would come to finalize the betrothal in mid-March. Seeing that there were only a few days left, I was extremely anxious. I had to get betrothed on the same day as my sister and married on the same day. My cousin sent someone over with an invitation. He had invited many socialites and young talents of the capital to an autumn gathering. I was busy trying to win over Shen Yougui and had no interest in it, but then I found out that he was actually attending as well. Thinking that seeing him one more time would mean one more chance, I agreed to go. I had to find a way to win Shen Yougui over at the banquet. I asked the cook if there was any way to make a man absolutely have to marry a woman.
Absolutely have to.
The cook thought thought for a moment, leaned in, and whispered a few words in my ear. I can actually do that.
But you mustn't use this method recklessly, miss. This is a major matter concerning your reputation.
I know. I brushed her off casually, thinking to myself, how could reputation compare to the importance of staying with my sister? On the day of the gathering, I dressed up exquisitely, as usual, and actively approached Shen Yougui.
Second miss?
He was no longer as cold to me as before, but he still refused to call me by my nickname. It seemed that if I wanted him to marry me, I had to use my trump card. I feigned dizziness, swaying my body slightly. It is so stuffy. Could you please take me somewhere to sit down and rest, Lord Shen? Shen Yougui quickly supported me and took me to a guest room. By the way, Lord Shen, I bought this on my way here. I remember you like this quite a bit. Shen Yougui was stunned, not expecting me to remember such a small detail.
Thank you, second young lady.
I held the pastry up to his mouth, then hurry up and try it. I brought him food quite often anyway, so Shen Yougui didn't suspect anything. He was still worried about my discomfort and asked if I wanted him to call a doctor. I shook my head and grabbed his sleeve, not letting him leave, quietly waiting for the drug to take effect. I had bought the most expensive and potent kind. In less than 15 minutes, Shen Yougui tugged at his collar uncomfortably, a faint flush rising on his face. He noticed the anomaly himself, and his brow was furrowed. He tried to stand up and leave.
Please excuse me, second young lady. I am feeling unwell, so I must take my leave.
No, you can't leave. I quickly wrapped my arms around his waist, clinging tightly to Shen Yougui. For someone so brilliant at solving cases and catching criminals, he figured out the cause and effect in an instant.
It was you. Why?
I simply stopped hiding it. I still want you to marry me. Shen Yougui clenched his fists. He raised his hand to push me away, but affected by the drug, his movement was extremely weak. Instead, his body fell back, collapsing into my arms.
Why must you force me to marry you?
Of course it is because I want to marry you, so I can keep staying with my sister. But I was still quite cautious. I couldn't say this kind of truth out loud. It would be a disaster if it reached my sister's ears, because I have feelings for you.
Feelings? Is that true?
It is. I absolutely must marry you. Shen Yougui said each word with deliberate emphasis.
Then do not regret it.
The cook's advice really worked. Shen Yougui finally nodded in the end, agreeing to marry me. Except he didn't do to me what the cook had suggested. Instead, he had me call in his personal guard, took a black pill, and swallowed it. I sat quietly by his side, waiting for Shen Yougui to slowly recover his strength. I didn't forget what he had promised. He must come to propose in 5 days. I thought Shen Yougui would press me further, asking why it had to be 5 days. To my surprise, after hearing this, he just stared at me for a moment and nodded.
Very well.
Shen Yougui is a man of his word. I wasn't worried at all that he would back out. With the marriage settled, I didn't need to constantly pester him anymore. So, just like before, I went back to being inseparable from my sister.
Why aren't you keeping second young master Shen company?
Oh well, it is already taken care of. Right now, I only want to be with you, sister.
Taken care of?
Afraid of saying too much and making a mistake. Sister, look at this gift list. Is this correct?
Oh, let me see.
Time flew by, and the day soon arrived for the Shen family to come and finalize the betrothal. Since I had instructed Shen Yougui that he only needed to bring his people and didn't need to do anything else, father and sister had no idea that Shen Yougui was coming to propose. Except for sister dressing up more beautifully than usual, everything else was as routine as always. The Shen family had sent a formal visit request earlier, stating that the eldest young master and the betrothal gifts would follow behind. We were waiting in the main hall early on. I didn't expect waiting for a proposal to be this boring. I let out a yawn, casually picking up and opening the invitation card that sat on the side. When I saw the family name at the very beginning, I was instantly shocked, thinking there was a mistake. Sister, look at this. The last name is wrong. What is wrong with it? Sister took a look, smiled, and said, it is correct. I froze for a moment, vaguely sensing that something had been mixed up. How is it correct? Isn't the Shen family the one proposing marriage?
What Shen family? You're half asleep. The engagement is with the Sheng family, the Sheng family of Huyang.
My mind instantly went blank from those words, my head buzzing with shock. How did it become the Sheng family?
What is wrong with you?
Sister noticed my strange behavior and was about to ask more.
First young master Sheng Xuan of Huyang and second young master Sheng Zi have arrived.
So she temporarily put it aside. I stood up to help father receive the guests. The man who walked in was a handsome young gentleman, accompanied by a boy around my age. Father and sister welcomed them inside, and both sides exchanged smiles and polite greetings. My brain was still in a daze, and I barely managed a few responses. Noticing the younger boy stealing glances at me, I looked over. He quickly withdrew his innocent gaze. Suddenly, it dawned on me. Oh no, the one proposing isn't the Shen family. It is the Sheng family. The one I'm supposed to marry is the second son of the Sheng family. But I mistook his identity and actually invited the second son of the Shen family, Shen Yougui, to come propose today. No, I have to stop him right away. Father watched as I, having just sat down, suddenly jumped up and rushed toward the door. But before I could run out, the butler's voice rang out again.
Second young master Shen Yougui of West Chaozi has arrived.
I'm doomed. Father and sister were utterly confused. Why, on the day of the Sheng family's proposal, did Shen Yougui show up?
Yougui pays respects to Master Song and to the eldest young lady of the Song family. Today, I came here.
Lord Shen is here to play with me. I was so afraid he would let the word marriage slip. I hurriedly interrupted him in a loud voice, not daring to look at anyone else's expression. I grabbed Shen Yugi's hand and dragged him toward the side courtyard. Fortunately, Shen Yougui didn't expose me right away. Instead, he let me drag him along. Only when I finally stopped did he ask softly,
Why didn't you let me finish? Did something happen?
I lowered my head, unsure of how to explain it for a moment. Shen Yougui speculated.
Is it that your father does not approve of us?
I shook my head vigorously. Father has no idea about this at all. There is no question of approval or disapproval. I bit my lip hard. Lord Shen, could you please not propose to me today? The other side fell silent for a moment. Shen Yougui didn't say a word. Just as I was growing more and more anxious, he finally spoke.
Just this.
I nodded vigorously, closing my eyes as if burning my bridges, shivering as I prepared to be scolded by him. Yet, he let out a soft chuckle.
Don't worry.
He even reached out and gently patted my head, consoling me.
I promise you I won't propose today.
He actually agreed so readily. It seemed Shen Yougui didn't really want to marry me either. That day was probably just because of the effects of the drug. I instantly let out a sigh of relief.
You are still young. I have also thought about it. Asking me to propose today in such a rush that day might have been too hasty. If you're not ready, we can wait a bit longer.
There is no need to wait for me, Lord Shen. I misunderstood before. I no longer need you to marry me. Shen Yugi's temper was better than I expected. I didn't want to deceive him either, so I explained everything that had happened recently and the reasons behind, telling him the whole story from beginning to end. Shen Yougui listened quietly. When I finished speaking, the room became so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Because his back was to the light, I couldn't quite see his expression clearly, but I presumed Shen Yougui, upon learning he didn't have to marry me. Shen Yougui must have been very happy deep down. I'm sorry, Lord Shen. I owe you an apology.
So are you going to marry the second young master of the Sheng family now?
His voice carried a hint of some hard-to-fathom meaning. The second young master Sheng. I recalled the young man I had just met. Normally, I should have married him without any hesitation. After all, this was the absolute best way. The absolute best way to stay with my sister forever. But for some reason, I actually hesitated for a moment. I shook my head honestly. I'm not sure. Only then did Shen Yugi's expression soften slightly, as he said,
I won't propose today. We can talk about the rest later.
Shen Yougui departed, but he left behind the dozens of carriage loads of gifts he had brought. He said they were to congratulate my sister on her betrothal, and could also serve as part of her dowry. The ancestors of our two families had never associated with each other, so this grand gift made no sense at all. Besides, it was my sister's betrothal, so why did Shen Yougui bring gifts? Father surely thought I had thrown a tantrum and demanded them, and he scolded me furiously.
What is he doing? Sending a gift that even puts the Sheng family to shame. Not to mention that you two have no connection right now. Even if you were married, it wouldn't be his place to provide her dowry.
Not daring to tell the truth, I could only brace myself and admit my mistake. My sister also felt it was inappropriate and wanted the gifts sent back, but the Shen household refused to accept them. So, she handed this task over to me, exhorting me that I must make Shen Yougui take the gifts back. I had no choice but to send him an invitation, asking to meet with him. Fortunately, Shen Yougui didn't decline, and he even set the location at my favorite tavern. When I arrived, he had already pre-ordered all my favorite dishes. Seeing that he harbored no grudge, I felt even more apologetic in my heart. Shen Yougui placed some food into my bowl and spoke.
After that day, I made some inquiries in private, and only then did I learn about your background. I know you and your sister grew up together, and that you two share a very deep bond. Huyang is too far away. If you really can't bear to be parted from her, I can have Sheng Xuan transferred to the capital for an official post. I won't restrict your freedom. In the future, whenever you miss her, you can go visit her anytime. What do you think?
I stood there dazed, never expecting Shen Yougui to say something like this to me. Seeing that I didn't reply, Shen Yougui did not press for an answer.
There is no rush. If you change your mind, you can come find me anytime.
But I didn't forget my sister's instructions. I took out the gift list, hoping Shen Yougui would take the gifts back. Otherwise, I would get scolded again when I got home.
If A-Liang doesn't want them right now, I will keep them safe for you for now.
Aren't these his things? How did it become keeping them safe for me? Just as I was about to ask, the maid guarding outside knocked on the door.
Miss, second young master Sheng is passing by and asks if you would like to go flower viewing together.
Since things were already settled on this side anyway. And as for second young master Sheng's side, there was still so much I needed to find out for my sister. Yes, I'll go, I hurriedly said. Lord Shen, I still have things to attend to, so I shall take my leave first. I bade farewell to Shen Yougui. The cup in Shen Yougui's hand made a tiny cracking sound. Before I could look closer, he had already lowered it, his hand hidden by his wide sleeve. A faint trace of water seeped from the edge of his cup. Shen Yougui gave a gentle smile. Go ahead. It was as if his loss of composure just now had been entirely my imagination.
Have a good time.
When I first heard my sister was marrying far away to Heiress, I was extremely reluctant. I nearly behaved like a little child, clinging to her arm and crying. I had assumed this was simply by parental command, and that father had chosen the groom for her. But then sister showed me her letters with Sheng Xuan. It turned out that as early as last year when Sheng Xuan came to the capital, he had crossed paths with her on the street once. He immediately tried every possible way to make inquiries. And after finding her, he began sending her letters. Over time, the two gradually came to know each other well. When Sheng Xuan proposed, my sister accepted, learning the inside story. I knew I couldn't stand in the way of her going to Heiress, but while I knew the capital well, I knew nothing of Heiress. I worried she might face discomforts after marrying there, so I wanted to prepare in advance. Therefore, whenever I had free time, I would seek out Shengza to ask for details. The two of us hung out together almost every day. Sheng Xuan, seeing this, couldn't help but tease, suggesting I should just marry Shengza so I could still be together with my sister in the future.
Don't talk nonsense, ouch.
But he had barely started the topic before my sister pinched his ear.
A-Liang already has someone she likes. Why haven't you gone to see Lord Shen lately?
Lord Shen? I don't like him anymore.
Is it because of that gift incident earlier?
No. I just don't have feelings for him anymore. Sheng Xuan's words reminded me of my own previous idea of marrying into the same family as my sister. Besides, Shengzi was very different from Shen Yougui. Unlike Shen Yougui, who always kept his distance from me and seemed not to care at all, I felt that if I were to ask Shengza to marry me, he would certainly agree much more readily than Shen Yougui. My cousin found yet another excuse to host a banquet. This time, I brought Shengze along with me. Although the Huyang Sheng family had few members in the capital, they were still among the prominent local gentry. Since it was Shengzi's first time visiting the capital, many people went up to talk to him and make inquiries. Seeing that he was handling it with ease, I headed over to the seating area for the female guests. Just as I was thinking of looking back to check on him, I happened to spot an unexpected figure, Shen Yougui. He rarely ever attended these gatherings of young masters from prominent families. When we chatted before, I had assumed his appearance last time was just an exception, so I didn't expect to run into him again today. Since we hadn't seen each other for quite a few days, I was actually a bit happy to see him. Just as I was about to go over and greet him, he quickly turned a corner and disappeared from sight. Is there some urgent matter? Filled with confusion, I went to look for Shengza, only to find that the atmosphere here was also somewhat tense. Several young masters from prominent families were quietly comforting Shengzi, thinking of the Shen Yougui who had just left. I couldn't help but press for answers. What happened?
Just now, while I was speaking at the table, that Lord Shen suddenly stood up with a displeased look on his face and walked away. I don't even know what I said wrong.
I was slightly taken aback. Shen Yougui was a true gentleman. Even when I set him up like that before, he hadn't shown a shred of anger toward me. I couldn't fathom what Shengze, who had just come from Huyang, could have said to make him so angry.
I didn't say anything inappropriate at all. I only mentioned how, during this past period, you took me out, and we nearly ate our way through every single restaurant in the capital. And also, a few days ago, when you insisted on going to the fabric shop at night to look at that piece of shimmering brocade, you ended up accidentally spraining your ankle, so I had to carry you out on my back.
Shengzi held nothing back in response to my inquiries, whether out of hospitality as a host or to show my appreciation. I certainly couldn't treat him poorly, especially regarding that roll of shimmering brocade. I heard it glows in the dark, making it incredibly unique and rare. That was why I wanted to go check it out as soon as possible. If it was true, I wanted to buy it before anyone else did, so I could give it to my sister as part of her dowry. Unfortunately, the fabric shop was stingy and refused to light the lamps at night. I wasn't paying attention and took a fall. Since the carriage was parked outside, I had Shengzi carry me out on his back. These were all the most ordinary, trivial matters. Everyone would just listen to it as casual gossip, and we'd be lucky if they didn't laugh at us. Who would get angry over something like this? Especially the magnanimous Lord Shen Yougui. There must be some misunderstanding. All right, I patted Shengzi on the shoulder. I'll go ask him for you. If there is really something wrong, we can just clear it up. I quickly ran out to catch up. I happened to see the Shen family carriage leaving the manor. Lord Shen, I called out loudly. The carriage immediately came to a halt. The curtain was pulled aside, and Shen Yougui turned his face toward me. I said I had something important to discuss with him. Shen Yougui seemed to weigh the request for a moment, then gave a nod to the driver in front. A servant quickly placed the carriage step and helped me step up. It is about Shengzi. I sat inside the carriage and explained the situation just now, as well as Shengzi's concerns. At the end, I asked Shen Yougui, Lord Shen, did he say something wrong? Shen Yougui seemed completely uninterested in Shengzi's situation.
Which foot did you injure?
His tone was no longer as warm and gentle as a spring breeze. For a moment, I couldn't even react. I froze for a good while, thinking he was probably just concerned about my injury, so I pointed to my left side.
Take off your shoe.
Huh? My eyes widened, and I completely froze in place. Could I have misheard him?
Aren't you injured? Let me take a look.
The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, but there was no hint of a smile.
Take off your shoe.
Lord Shen, this is highly inappropriate. When he spoke for the third time,
Take it off.
Shen Yougui's voice had grown somewhat cold, carrying an indescribable sense of authority. That gaze fell upon me as heavy as Mount Tai, making me instinctively flinch a little. I simply didn't dare to refuse. I hesitantly took off my shoe, then looked up at Master Shen. He continued, take off your sock too. Since the shoe was already off, this single thin sock made little difference. I complied and pulled the sock off as well. Just as I was wondering what Master Shen intended to do, he actually leaned down, lifted my bare foot, and placed it on his knee. The burning warmth of his palm pressed against me. Terrified, I couldn't help but cry out in surprise. My foot instinctively tried to pull back at the ankle, but was held firmly in place. As he pressed on a sore spot, I didn't dare move restlessly, and could only beg for mercy with a trembling voice. It hurts, though it had been several days since the sprain, and the injury was not as severe as initially. A closer look revealed it was still somewhat red.
What?
Master Shen was slightly taken aback, seemingly not expecting me to actually be injured. That oppressive storm-like tension vanished instantly. His brow seemed to relax for a moment, but quickly furrowed again.
Running around outside, even with an injury.
He said, his voice carrying a hint of blame. This tone sounded somewhat like my older sister. I couldn't help but feel a bit guilty, and defended myself saying, it did hurt for the first 2 days, but it is actually no big deal. It indeed hurt for the first couple of days, but by nature, I couldn't sit still. Besides, I didn't actually have to walk when going out. It was only when I ran to find him just now that the old injury was slightly aggravated. Master Shen took a small medicine vial from a hidden compartment, applied some ointment to the affected area, and gently massaged it for me. At first, it hurt so much that I wanted to flinch away, but soon the pain faded. Besides, Shen Yougui's technique is very professional, so I just let him keep massaging it for me. Master Shen asked,
Did you use the medicine I gave you before?
I nodded. That medicine was indeed very effective. Thanks to it, I recovered extremely quickly. Unfortunately, once I finished using it one day, I couldn't remember where I had casually tossed it.
I will have someone deliver some more tomorrow.
Shen Yougui said,
As I said before, taking 100 days to heal bones and muscles is no joke.
very well, but I am curious. Why does Lord Shen possess such excellent medicine? Shen Yougui explained calmly.
The Court of Judicial Review constantly deals with all kinds of cases. Injuries in the line of duty are inevitable.
After he finished applying the medicine to my foot, he picked up the sock I had taken off, looking as if he intended to put it on for me. But I was not a 3-year-old child. I could put it on myself. Moreover, letting Shen Yougui do this for me made my face flush with warmth. Lord Shen, I can do it myself. Shen Yougui acted as if he hadn't heard me. His expression remained calm and serene, yet he carried an air that brooked no refusal. Shen Yougui methodically helped me put on my sock and shoe, before letting my foot touch the ground.
You must rest your foot carefully. I will escort you back to your manor. I will send someone to instruct your family servants to bring the carriage back.
I was slightly dazed. Oh? I vaguely felt that the Shen Yougui before me now was like a completely different person. Yet I couldn't quite pinpoint exactly what had changed. I thought my perception was simply mistaken. Or perhaps Lord Shen was indeed in a bad mood that day. I planned to ask him about it when he sent the medicine. To my surprise, only his subordinate arrived.
His Majesty dispatched Lord Shen on an urgent mission. Besides the ointment, there are also several packets of herbs. Lord Shen said that boiling them to soak your feet will speed up your recovery.
Thank you. I put the items away. Perhaps because Shen Yougui cared more about my injury than I did myself. I actually stayed home obediently to recuperate for several days, fearing that the next time we met, he would make me take off my shoes and lecture me again. As the end of the year approached, the capital was filled with a joyful and festive atmosphere. But if you asked who was the most unhappy, it would definitely be me. After the new year, my sister was to leave the capital with the Sheng family's convoy to go to Heiress for her wedding. I exhausted all my powers of persuasion, working together with Shengzi, who tried his best to help me convince her, before sister finally agreed to let me accompany her as part of her bridal escort. But fearing that I would refuse refused to leave once I got there. She made me agree to 3 conditions, stipulating that after her wedding, I could stay for 3 months at most. I agreed immediately. Anyway, if she tries to drive me away when the time comes, I will figure something out then. On the day my foot injury healed, Shen Yougui also returned to the capital. I specially treated him to a meal to show my gratitude. My sister declined. So many prestigious families in the capital. And by now, the rumors of her marrying far away to Huyang after the new year had spread all over town. Some people were discussing it during the meal. Upon hearing this, Shen Yougui said his previous offer still stands and asked me what I planned to do. Naturally, I wanted to stay with my sister all the time, but I have already decided to go to Huyang with my sister first to see how things really are. If she prefers Huyang, then I will stay and keep her company. If she is not happy there, I will have Shen Yougui recall Sheng immediately. So I told Shen Yougui there was no rush and that I would speak up if I needed help.
If A-Liang gets bored in the future and wants someone to confide in, you can always come to me.
My heart fluttered slightly. Indeed, Shen Yougui is truly the finest man I have ever met in my life. But once I leave with sister, who knows when we will meet again. Even if I wanted to catch up with him, it would probably be difficult. For some reason, whenever I think of that, my heart feels a bit heavy, as if the one I was parting from was my sister. I shook my head vigorously. To shake off these thoughts, I focused on thanking him. Thank you, Lord Shen. Time flew by quickly. On the second day of the Lunar New Year, Shen Yougui prepared generous New Year gifts. Aside from the things I liked, my sister and father also received a share. He and father were colleagues in the imperial court, so it was only natural for them to exchange some courtesies. Father couldn't easily refuse, so he could only order his servants to prepare reciprocal gifts of equal value. I also felt too embarrassed to take his gifts for nothing, so I stayed up all night to make a sachet. But my needlework was far inferior to my sister's. Coupled with the rushed work, the embroidery pattern looked quite sloppy, with the plants and trees all tangled together. Lord Shen was of noble status. What precious treasures had he not seen? I was a bit afraid he would laugh at me. Fortunately, Lord Shen did not mind it at all.
This sachet is very unique.
To show how much he liked it, Shen Yougui took off the old one at his waist on the spot and threw it to his attendant, then solemnly put mine on instead. He took out a piece of jade from his sleeve and handed it to me.
I originally wanted to give this to you along with the New Year gifts, but I thought it would be more appropriate to present it to you in person.
Though I was no expert at appraising treasures, I could tell this mutton fat jade was extremely smooth and fine, and must have been incredibly precious. Under normal circumstances, I would never have dared to accept it so casually, but thinking that I would rarely see Lord Shen again after a few days, my heart sank involuntarily, and I accepted it as a return gift for the sachet. In the blink of an eye, the Lantern Festival passed, and all the preparations to escort my sister to her wedding were completed. I too boarded the carriage. Waving goodbye to my father, the grand bridal procession departed from the imperial city. I took one last look back at the city gate plaque, unconsciously clutching the jade tightly in my hand. My sister saw everything.
Loth to leave.
I froze for a moment. The sudden, chaotic emotion in my heart seemed to find a place to settle because of these words. Could it be that, aside from my sister, there is someone else I would miss?
Is it because of Lord Shen?
My sister asked probingly. She was perspective and understood my heart best. On one hand, I feared she would see through my thoughts, and on the other, I wanted to avoid talking about Shen Yougui. Most importantly, I couldn't dismiss her suspicion as easily as before. I couldn't bring myself to say that I didn't care for Shen Yougui at all. I quickly lifted the carriage curtain. Sister, I'm going to hang out with Sheng. I'll have brother Sheng come over to keep you company. I used that as an excuse to slip away, as if fleeing. Though I had stolen nothing, I felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. Sheng misunderstood and clicked his tongue in wonder.
Did you have a fight with your sister?
How is that possible? My sister and I never fought. I listened to her more than anyone. The horses chosen for the bridal escort were all fine steeds. We reached Mount Guanyang in just half a day. Sheng said that at this speed, we would make it to the next town before nightfall. Not having to camp out in the wilderness was naturally for the best. After a brief rest, everyone set off again with renewed spirits. Sheng and I were leisurely playing cards inside the carriage when we suddenly heard a commotion outside. The carriage shook violently, as if the horses were startled. Amidst the panicked voices, I could even hear words like bandits blocking the road. There are bandits. Oh no. Sister, I couldn't care about anything else. Holding onto the carriage frame, I leaped down swiftly. Sure enough, I saw a band of fierce-looking thugs, clashing with our guards with swords and clubs in hand. Although we had selected elite guards, they were outnumbered by the enemies, and our guards quickly fell into a disadvantage. Seizing the opportunity, I rushed toward my sister's carriage. Fortunately, I was never one to conform to rules, and my sister never constrained me either. I possessed a bit more physical strength than ordinary ladies. Not daring to get close to those holding swords, I managed to snatch away a wooden club that was about to smash the carriage.
A-Liang.
Hearing the commotion, my sister poked her head out.
What are you doing? Get up here, quick.
I swung the stick to drive away the bandits, and told Sheng to protect her and ride off first. The guards faithfully remembered what our family had entrusted to them. Someone led a horse over, intending for us to evacuate first. A-Liang, my sister was unwilling to leave alone. Get up here, quick. I turned my head. Sheng, who was in the middle of a fierce battle, turned and shouted.
Listen to your sister.
With no time for back and forth arguing, I swung myself onto the horse. Yeah, the area around the capital has always been peaceful. How could such a large band of bandits appear out of nowhere? Even if I don't like reading books and hate using my brain, I should still be able to see through this. These people are clearly coming for the bridal procession. Could it be my father's arch nemesis? The horse galloped wildly, stirring up gusts of howling wind. Behind us, urgent hoofbeats also seemed to echo. I pulled the reins to bring the horse to a stop. If I could figure this out, my sister naturally could too. She had been throwing her gold hairpins along the way just now, and now she is quickly taking off her outer robe. I, on the other hand, put on her clothes and gave mine to her to change into.
A-Liang, what do you plan to do?
Sister, you hide first. I will lead them away.
No, if anyone is hiding, it should be you.
It is too late for that. You excel at everything more than me, sister, but your horsemanship is not as good as mine. Shengshan said, the town is not far. I will be faster to get help.
A-Liang, you must return safely.
I had my sister lie down and randomly gathered some branches to cover her. I'm sorry to make you go through this, sister. I will definitely return quickly. I held my breath and waited for a moment, hearing the hoofbeats drawing closer. Only then did I whip the horse forward. The wind blew at the red silk. The pursuers did not stop at all, rushing forward in a frantic hurry. It seems these guys are amateurs. Their horsemanship is pretty poor. Before long, I left them far behind. Up ahead on the main road, the sound of more horse hooves approached. Are they more bandits, or is it help? I didn't know, but right now, I had to take a gamble. I soon crossed paths with that group of strangers. My heart gave a sudden, violent jolt. In broad daylight, it was bad enough that every single one of them was masked, but they also had long swords hanging from their waists. They looked like elite fighters at a glance. They looked like the type who would just wipe me out, looking even more like bandits than the actual bandits from earlier. I reined in my horse, yet they didn't rush forward to rob me. The man leading them asked me, Miss, what is happening? Bandits behind us have hijacked our convoy. The men quickly exchanged looks, then spurred their horses and charged ahead. Could they actually be the good guys? I let out a sigh of relief in my heart, looking at the leader who had stayed behind. Thank you, hero. The warrior remained silent. He rode his horse forward. His eyes looked somewhat familiar. In the next instant, an arm swept across, scooping me up right into the air and pulling me against his body. Before I could even ask what he was doing, a handkerchief was pressed over my nose and mouth. My consciousness rapidly faded, and I went limp, slipping into unconsciousness. When I woke up, my vision was still a bit blurry. I instinctively tried to move my hands, only to find my hands and feet locked in iron chains. My heart tightened. I quickly sat up and looked around. It was a plain wooden cabin. There was very little inside the room. Looking through the open window, I could see misty mountain peaks. The red bridal gown I was wearing had been stripped off and thrown onto the floor. These people have mistaken me for my older sister. Is anyone there? Someone come here. A young boy ran in and stopped at the doorway, looking at me from a distance.
What is it, young lady?
He was dressed like a hunter and had rather delicate features. Where is this?
An unnamed peak next to Mount Guanyin.
Where are the other people you captured? Are they locked up here too? There are no other people.
Only you, young lady.
Just me. That group's target was indeed my older sister. Who could they be? What about the procession you attacked? The boy seemed quite surprised.
We didn't attack any procession. I was ordered by his lordship to guide you.
I became even more confused. Only after asking several more questions did I finally understand the truth. It turned out bandits had appeared before the new year. How could banditry be tolerated right under the emperor's nose? So men were sent to corner them. Unexpectedly, the bandits hid deep in the mountains. The boy was a local mountain hunter and knew the paths best. He had accepted the order of the commanding lord to scout the nearby area. He told me that the bandits had all been captured and escorted back to the capital. The Song family's procession had turned back to the capital, and the eldest Miss Song was safe and sound. Hearing those last words, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Who is this lord?
His lordship is his lordship.
It was just that for 3 consecutive days, that lord did not show his face. I had initially thought it was some enemy who wanted to use this opportunity to deliberately torment me. But although I was locked up, the young hunter treated me with respect, except for refusing to reveal the truth regarding other things like food, drink, and playthings. He gave me whatever I asked for. Fortunately, this mystery didn't last too long. On the evening of the 4th day, that mysterious lord finally showed up. I had a belly full of curses ready to hurl at him, but I froze the moment I saw his face clearly. Lord Shen. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect the person who kidnapped me to be Shen Yougui. Of course, before the new year, the emperor had sent him on a mission to suppress bandits and those familiar eyes from that day, but I was still baffled. But why? Shen Yougui ignored my question and asked back.
I should be the one asking you that, second miss. I understand that you are young and dependent on your older sister, which led you to make a foolish mistake.
I instinctively shrank back until my back hit the wall. He watched my movement closely, his gaze darkening further.
Are you afraid of me? Back then, I gave you a chance. What did you say to me? Do you want to be with your sister so badly that you insist on marrying Shangzi?
Huh? I listened, completely bewildered.
If that is the case, I might as well make sure your sister can't marry into the Sheng family.
And have my brother marry her instead.
What is it?
Don't.
You don't want this, and you don't want that. Since you refuse to be my official wife, then from now on, you'll stay in my manor without any official title.
I struggled and pushed him, but the disparity in our strength was too great. I recalled the faintly worried look in my father's eyes when he saw me interacting with him. It was no wonder the minister of the Court of Judicial Review was getting old, and the one truly in power was Shen Yougui. Without a bit of iron-fisted ruthlessness, how could he keep those old foxes in court in line? My father was afraid I was just a passing whim to him, and would end up playing with fire. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The fire had already caught up to me. At night, Shen Yougui lay down fully clothed and slept right beside me. His eyes were closed, his breathing even and steady, looking as if he had fallen fast asleep. I quietly got up and tentatively reached toward his pockets. I had chatted with that young boy earlier. If the key wasn't around the house, it was definitely on Shen Yougui's person. Besides, when Shen Yougui arrived today, the boy had already left. There was only a single horse outside. As long as I unlocked the chains and rode away, he wouldn't be able to catch up with me. No matter how skilled he was, he couldn't outrun a horse. Feeling a surge of excitement, I searched him for a while and finally found the key inside his pouch. I unlocked the chains and stepped over him on tiptoe to get out of bed. Before leaving, I took one last look back at him and suddenly noticed his face was abnormally flushed. It looked a lot like his symptoms the day I drugged him. But today, I hadn't done anything. After hesitating for a moment, I tentatively reached out to feel his forehead. He is burning up. I instinctively pulled my hand back. How could this be? What should I do? If I just walk away, this fever will surely damage his brain. After struggling with the decision for a long time, I eventually brought over some cold water. Just like how my sister used to take care of me when we were young, I used a cold, wet cloth to wipe his face and body. When I unbuttoned his collar to wipe his chest, I suddenly spotted a thick layer of gauze. Startled, I pulled his clothes open, only to find a gash that ran right across his chest. I had asked him earlier why he carried so much medicine, and he had said getting hurt on duty was very common. Speaking in a completely casual tone, I had no idea the wound was this severe. I felt a sudden pang of distress, a dull ache in my heart. Shen Yougui had some medicine with him, but I didn't know anything about medicine, and didn't dare to use it blindly. So, I had to keep relying on this basic method. The candle was more than half burnt down, and I was exhausted beyond belief. Propping my head up, I leaned against the bedside, and in a daze, I felt someone carry me back to bed. Too tired to even open my eyes, I snuggled closer to the warmth, falling into a peaceful sleep. When I opened my eyes the next morning, Shen Yougui was already sitting up. He seemed to have recovered quite a bit. At that moment, he was sitting in a chair, staring at me, quietly. I had no idea how long he had been watching. The shackles were gone. Shen Yougui must have anticipated that I would try to escape last night, fearing he might use force to lock me up again. I quickly cried out, "You were gravely ill last night, so I didn't leave." This counts as saving your life, doesn't it? Shen Yougui did not argue with me.
If that is the case, I shall offer myself to you in marriage.
I waved my hands frantically. There is really no need. Just let me leave. Shen Yougui's expression instantly turned cold. Panic immediately surged within me. I had said the wrong thing again.
Last night I thought to myself, if you had simply walked away, then you and I would be finished.
Shen Yougui gave a humorless smile.
But since you didn't leave, I will never give you the chance to leave again.
No wonder getting the key had been so easy. It turned out Shen Yougui was just testing me to see my reaction. This man truly possessed a deep and calculating mind. Seeing my face contorted with anger, Shen Yougui burst out laughing. In an instant, he seemed to transform back into that gentle and elegant gentleman. I turned my head away, burying myself under the blanket, and asked in a muffled voice, "Does what you said before still count?"
Which part? What I said at the tavern? Transferring Shengshuan back to the capital?
No, not about not keeping me under house arrest, and letting me see my sister whenever I want. There was a long silence from the chair over there.
They still stand. But for at least these next 6 months. Oh well. You must stay in the manor for these 6 months.
A 6-month agreement seemed fair enough. Sure. Shen Yougui and I rode back on horseback, fearing his wound might reopen. I slowed down our pace, and by the time we reached the capital, the night was already deep. During our journey, I learned some insider details of the case that hadn't been disclosed. For instance, I had guessed correctly. There indeed was an adversary of my father's among the bandits. That band of outlaws initially numbered fewer than 20, led by 2 escaped convicts, who had gathered displaced people from the northern border. As the new year approached, to reassure the public, the emperor issued a secret decree ordering Shen Yougui to eliminate the bandits. Unexpectedly, the bandits mistakenly accidentally kidnapped a dismissed official returning to his hometown. That man had originally worked in the Ministry of Personnel, engaged in selling official posts, and lost his position after my father reported him, harboring a grudge on one hand and trying to save his own skin on the other. He leaked the news of my sister's wedding. He told them that robbing the bridal escort would yield endless wealth and a bride. He also helped the bandit chief secretly assemble many outlaws and rogue soldiers. Those people hid deep in the mountains, making them extremely difficult to track down. The emperor did not want to deploy too many troops, so Shen Yougui only sent a clever young hunter to keep watch, to avoid alerting the targets. His presence in the vicinity that day was actually because he heard I was leaving with my sister and wanted to show up to stop me. Coincidentally, he ran into the bandits instead and decided to wipe them out completely. But my father and sister wouldn't be so easily fooled. They didn't find my body. How do you plan to explain that?
Without any sign of me, they will surely search the mountains.
Shen Yougui held me tight.
It is cold right now. The body won't rot easily, but it will rain in a couple of days, exposed to the wind and sun. And with wild beasts and birds of prey, it is bound to become unrecognizable. Dressed in your jewelry and wedding gown. Indeed, it would be hard to tell the real from the fake.
I was left speechless for a moment. This man's calculations were absolutely flawless. It seemed he had planned this long ago. He really is full of bad ideas and conspiracies. What if I refuse to go back with you, no matter what? I asked casually. Shen Yougui leaned his head down and kissed my hair.
The new year isn't even over yet. Don't talk such nonsense.
I didn't expect. He is actually quite superstitious. Shen Yougui had already fabricated a story for my unexpected and safe return. Naturally, he had an explanation ready. He would tell everyone that I was chased by bandits that day and lost my way, falling by the side of a stream, and was fortunately saved by a village woman washing clothes. Unfortunately, due to the fright, I temporarily lost my memory and only recovered it today. As luck would have it, I ran into Shen Yougui, who was out of the city investigating a case, and the two of us returned together. Although there were some minor flaws in the story, my return home brought such immense joy to my sister and father that they had no time to press for details. This case had wide-ranging implications and even reached corrupt officials of the past. The emperor ordered Shen Yougui to wrap it up swiftly, handing down sentences, and those who should be executed. The emperor also specially bestowed many rewards upon my father and sister. Having heard the rumors of my bravery in fetching reinforcements, he even offered a few words of praise. By the time the dust finally settled, 7 days had already passed. Father chose another auspicious date and doubled the number of guards to escort my sister to Huyang. I could not bear to leave them. She still has to go, of course. But this time, I asked Shen Yougui out a day in advance. I am only accompanying her on the way. My sister will not be marrying Shengzi. I quickly clarified. I was truly terrified by him. What if I didn't make it clear? And he went crazy again.
I understand. How long until you return?
I pondered. Shen Yougui's face instantly darkened. I reacted quickly. His face was still very displeased. This softened him up a lot. I changed my wording. It is only 2 months anyway. I simply stopped paying attention to his expression.
Very well.
Shen Yougui let out a soft sigh.
I will wait for you.
On the day of departure from the capital, Shen Yougui came to see us off. He also slipped me a personal seal, saying that if I encountered difficulties, I could show this token at the local government office, and someone would surely assist me. I indeed still felt a lingering fear from the last incident, so I quickly tucked it away. Well, I will return early. Oh, by the way, Lord Shen is so far-sighted and strategically brilliant. Did you really not notice that the wedding gown that day did not fit my measurements? See you in 2 months. I will listen to Lord Shen's explanation when I return.